Today we're looking at a documentary that alleges that Suze Orman is a liar and a fraudster. To be more specific, we're going to dig into the details on Suze Orman's approved card because, in our main topic, we're going to talk about how Taylor Swift's boyfriend may very well be promoting something that has similar claims. Sticking around to the end of this episode may very well help you and your loved ones not be duped. Good morning and welcome to the HopeFilled Financial Podcast. My name is Jay Disberger, your one and only HopeFilled financial coach, and I'm happy that you're here with us today. Normally I try to focus on more positive topics, but this documentary and the allegations around Suze Orman's approved card are directly related to what we talked about last week. Last week I gave my top 10 tips for mortgage success, and one of them was to either have a good credit score or no credit score at all if you have reasonable history that can be used to justify manual underwriting. And it's a well-known fact that having a good credit score or a high FICO score is easily the path of least resistance when it comes to getting a good rate on your mortgage. Before FICO, manual underwriting was simply the way that everybody got their mortgage, and it still exists today because there's a good percentage of Americans who don't have credit cards and don't have a FICO score. Many of you listening know Dave Ramsey's advice when it comes to credit cards and may very well have followed that advice, cut all your credit cards up, and gone the path of absolutely no interaction with a debt product other than a mortgage. And if that describes you or someone you know, you realize that there could be a good market for a product that could help build a credit score without having to interact with a debt product. I expect you probably have one of two reactions to that. One, that's ridiculous, that's not how credit scores work. Or two, that would be intriguing, and if such a thing existed, I would be interested in that. With that, the documentary that we're covering today has a lot that is alleged against Suze Orman. The documentary itself is called How Suze Orman Scammed the Working Class. And by sharing this with you, I'm not validating or supporting the evidence for or against Suze Orman. I simply want to draw awareness to the allegations that are made here in this documentary because Suze, as we're about to hear, had a debit card, a prepaid debit card, that she claimed could generate a FICO score. Listen to this.
You deserve to have a vehicle like my approved card. If I can be doing that for you, can you just help me help you?
Now tell me about your prepaid card that you brought out, because you've taken a lot of flack for this.
Yes.
They're like, Susie's on the take here, she's raking up your fees.
You have something new that everybody needs.
It's in my pocket.
Regarding a credit card?
No, it's a debit card. In fact, this is a prepaid card. It's called the approved card.
Approved in the approved card is a reference to Suze Orman's show where callers would come in and ask permission to do something with money and she'd either approve them or deny them. And I'm going to reiterate here, everything in this documentary is alleged. As you see on the screen, if you have the video, the documentary is starting to imply that this is a scam. Let's hear a little bit more about that.
18 to 24 months from now, a debit card will generate a FICO score. A debit card can create a FICO score. A prepaid debit card will start to create a FICO score for you. People who pay on a debit card can have a FICO score. And therefore, a debit card will generate a FICO score. Can you imagine? You can get a FICO score. So you've got to join me in this, everybody.
This is a big deal.
Big deal.
Well, I think that's ample video evidence to show that Suze Orman did claim that her debit card could create or generate or build a FICO score.
Read my lips, folks. Prepaid debit cards do nothing, zero, zilch to help your credit. Don't argue with me because it just simply is not true.
As we keep rolling, notice many trusted media outlets supported Suze Orman and her approved card while others fought vehemently against it.
Don't you understand? There is millions and millions of dollars in poverty. The more you don't know about your money, the more you don't want to get involved with your money, the more money people can make off of you in late fees and these high prepaid card charges.
I'm pretty sure the reason the documentary included that clip is to show that Suze Orman believes that those who are afraid to look at their money are easy to take advantage of with fees.
Suze Orman's card has 20 fees.
Yes.
20 fees.
It's called the approved card. The approved card. So just go online, You can find it under Suze's name or right in the approved card. I know it's being talked about everywhere now that the story broke today, but just go online tonight and read more about the approved card and what Suze is doing individually to try to address the issue of poverty in this way. So, Suze, thank you.
If you're listening to audio only, the documentary goes through a series of article titles that are talking about the approved card.
I don't believe in the naysayers and what they say I'm doing, because that's not what I am doing.
There you go. All right.
Understand, and I'm upfront with you, if you use this card the way I tell you, there will only be a $3 a month fee, period. There is a $3 a month charge, and that's all it will cost you if you use it like I tell you to. Yes, there's a fee on this card. It is $3 a month. But if you use this card exactly like I tell you to, it will never cost you more than $3 per month.
Now, I wish I knew more about how Suze says you should use the card. She says that she has a way of using it that will only cost you $3 a month. But that also implies that there are other fees that could be brought up if you don't use it in a particular way. I do just wish that way was clear. If anyone knows of a resource where Suze spells out exactly how the approved card is supposed to be used, I would like to see it referenced in the comments.
HLN tallies up the fee frenzy you'll face with Suze Orman's approved card.
$2 for a paper statement, $1 for pay by check, $2 for over-the-counter cash withdrawal, and $2 to talk to a live customer service agent after one free call per month.
It also costs you anywhere from $3.50 to $4.95 to load money on the card.
Enter personal finance guru Suze Orman with a dose of her signature tough love and something else, a new kind of plastic. Here she is with my colleague, Juju Chang.
Suze Orman is telling people to quit their banks.
People can go off the grid. They can take their money out of a bank.
But these days, Suze's real mission, turning all her firepower against a surprising new target, debit cards. High monthly charges, fees for every transaction, including ATMs. Suze says the pitfalls are endless. So today, she's launching her own debit card, which is fully transparent, no hidden fees, just $3 a month.
You hate banks, and yet you're getting in bed with a bank to do the prepaid card.
Yeah, now, first of all, let's be clear. I don't hate all banks.
Again, for audio-only listeners, the documentary went through the terms of service list of all the fees that are associated with this prepaid debit card, and they were extensive, assuming that the information that this documentary is producing here is genuine. Before we jump back into the documentary, I want to point out the biggest red flag to me from that last segment. It was Suze is going up against the banks, that she doesn't like banks, and she's trying to get people to pivot away from banking to her prepaid debit card as a banking alternative. I want you as a consumer to be very leery of anyone who gets very grumpy with banks in general just to try to sell you another bank, especially if that alternative is not FDIC insured. Now I'm going to jump right to the middle of the documentary because after that last segment, the topics pivot to other allegations against Suze Orman that aren't related to the approved card. If you're interested in the other allegations, I encourage you to go give this documentary a listen, even though the video and audio quality leaves something to be desired.
If you have a card that is sharing information with a credit bureau, they need to be sharing it with one of those 3 credit bureaus, because otherwise it doesn't report. Because this has been such a serious problem in the United States of America, I decided I needed to do something about it. So I have a prepaid debit card that I have brought out. It is called the approved card. Yes. All right, you will pay $3 a month to have this card, but here is the news on this card. It is the first prepaid general purpose card, debit card, in history that is sharing information with a major credit bureau, TransUnion.
Okay, so the claim here is that this is the very first debit card to be sharing information with a credit bureau, TransUnion in particular. Now, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax are the 3 major credit bureaus that collect your information when it comes to your credit accounts, when it comes to your debts and your debt payment history, in order to generate a FICO score or a credit score that is then used by creditors to evaluate your credit worthiness or the likelihood that you will pay back a loan to them. Even though I don't have any evidence beyond this documentary to prove it, I do believe Suze Orman when she says that the approved card was sharing information with TransUnion.
It will take 18 months after you start using it for TransUnion to decide, is that information relevant so that we can calculate scores on it.
This is blatant fraud. Susie's card could not do a thing to help anyone's credit score.
Credit scoring systems are not going to consider information that is not predictive of future credit risk. And a prepaid debit card is really nothing more than me using cash, which does not tell a story about my credit usage.
So let me ask, I'll ask the question in a way that is easy to understand. If I go to Starbucks, does it mean I'm a worse credit risk? I don't know. What does it tell you? Literally nothing, right?
It tells me that you like coffee.
That's funny. I will add here that this is sort of the catch-22 when it comes to FICO scores and Dave's position on it. A FICO score is indeed purposed for lenders to figure out whether or not you are a high-risk or a low-risk borrower. That's the whole idea behind them. And the point brought up here is that your spending habits with cash don't give any information about how likely you are to pay back a lender.
Something is wrong with the system. So help me fix it, people. Here's how. For the next few months, the data that is coming off of this card, the approved card, and you would go to theapprovedcard.com to get one, is being analyzed by TransUnion, one of the 3 major credit bureaus out there. They are finding, and they are happy about what they are finding. It is possible that in the next 6 months to 1 year, TransUnion will deem that activity on a prepaid card will be included on their credit reports. If it's included on their credit reports, it is going to generate a credit score for you.
I want to bring up here that this is the first time in the documentary that we've listened to so far where Suze, instead of saying this card will generate a FICO score for you, says that the information is being analyzed to see if the information on there is relevant to your FICO score, which is a very different claim.
That is history making, but nobody out there wants me to succeed.
It's a scam, disguised as a pseudo-experiment. Somehow, Orman convinced TransUnion to play along. Maybe it was getting all those card users' personal private buying information for free that enticed them. Or maybe it had something to do with that $143 a year that many approved card victims paid to have access to their TransUnion scores that are readily available for free through Credit Karma and other venues.
If you don't know, you can completely access your credit reports from all 3 credit bureaus for free. The federal government ensured this by passing a law that says you have the right to know what is on your credit reports for free at least once a year.
TransUnion's only comment about their big experiment with Suze Orman's approved card came to one Chicago Tribune journalist, who wrote, "Orman says she's not sure where this will lead, and TransUnion wouldn't provide much clarity. When I tried to talk with the company, a spokesman merely emailed me, TransUnion is committed to supporting Suze's efforts to understand the impact of prepaid card use on an individual's credit health. Our goal is to help Suze understand whether including this data in a consumer's credit report would impact access to credit products."
So this implies to me that TransUnion was genuinely collecting information, but they were not committed to an actual plan on how they were going to translate this information into building a credit score. More or less, they were collecting many consumers' information to quote-unquote help Suze understand.
My goal is to get it so that debit cards create a score. And if it can, we've changed the scoring system in the United States of America.
And so is one credit agency enough, though, to make those scores relevant?
No, I want Experian to join me in this. I want Equifax. Come on, everybody.
This is something I want you to remember for the main topic. She said that it's important that if this is going to be a genuine change, that all three major credit bureaus get on board with an edit to the scoring system. And at this point, I completely understand why what Suze is selling sounds desirable to the consumers. Again, for anybody who wants to have a credit score without having to interact with debt products, this is appealing. There was clearly a market for this sales pitch, and that market still exists. Now I'm going to jump forward 15 more minutes in the documentary to cover our second to last segment. Check this out.
One might wonder why FICO themselves would not speak up, or even take legal action against someone who is using their name with false insinuations and promises to scam the public.
You all do know what a FICO score is, don't you? Just in case you don't know, FICO stands for Fair Isaac Corporation, the company that kind of started these credit scores years and years ago.
Let's have a quick look at Suze's relationship with Fair Isaac Corporation, whose FICO scores Suze Orman helped put on the map. FICO has paid Suze tens of millions of dollars to tell people how a good FICO score is the most important thing in their financial lives.
This to me is a really interesting claim to say that FICO used Suze Orman to push how important a credit score or a FICO score actually is. It's purely a marketing shtick, just like a diamond is a girl's best friend. In saying that a FICO score is indicative of your financial success and your access to financial success is just marketing. It's marketing that encourages you to be a better borrower so that you can be a creditworthy borrower, so that more people can lend you more money with confidence that they will make money as a result of working with you. And it's very interesting that Suze Orman allegedly was instrumentally connected with FICO in this marketing effort.
If you've ever watched me, you know I'm somebody who is FICO frenzied, which means I always talk about FICO scores. And to my surprise, many of you still don't know what a FICO score is. So if that happens to be you, listen up to me. A FICO score is a 3-digit number.
In 2003, Congress passed a law giving people the right to see their credit scores. FICO teamed with Suze Orman to charge around $50 a pop for her FICO kit.
I mentioned earlier that the federal government passed a law that allows you to access your credit reports for free every year. And what's being alleged right here with the Suze Orman FICO kit, as we're about to hear, is that FICO and Suze Orman were still charging for this even though consumers could access their reports for free.
Suze Orman's FICO kit brings together two powerhouses of personal finance. 1 year later, MyFICO announces 10 million FICO scores purchased. In 4 short years, MyFICO.com has grown from a one-product experiment in consumer education to become the most trusted source in the country.
A FICO score now determines if a landlord will rent to you. In many states, it determines what your car insurance premium happens to be. It's also starting to determine if an employer will hire you.
What I think Suze said right there is simply a reflection of how brilliant FICO's marketing is, that their score needs to be prioritized by consumers, employers, lenders, and insurance agencies all alike.
Based on this lawsuit, the kit not only gave bad advice, but was actually sharing kit users' information about their finances with creditors. To disguise these debt collection efforts by Suze Orman as advice is misleading, deceptive, and extremely damaging to consumers. The CRAs and Fair Isaac are in business to assist creditors and collectors with the collection of debts. Is it legal to request that consumers submit personal information so that current and future creditors can use it to aid their debt collection efforts. Fair Isaac fails to disclose that the purpose of this service is debt collection. That lawsuit was successful.
I don't know about you, but I found that chilling. The kit that Suze Orman was selling in conjunction with MyFICO, with Fair Isaac Corporation, allegedly, according to the documentary and the lawsuit information that the documentary showed, it was all a thing where you charge someone for a kit, you collect their information, and then utilize that to improve debt collection. At least that was my understanding of that. Solely in my opinion, that feels gross.
With Orman suggesting throughout the media landscape that using her approved card was going to lead to an improved FICO score.
You know how Romney was out of touch with the poor people? The people who are judging prepaid cards today are out of touch with the poor people.
Many journalists wanted to know what FICO thought about it. This must have put FICO in quite a challenging position, since they are business partners. FICO responded only to one of those journalists, saying, "In our experience, spending is not actually a great indicator of the thing that the FICO score tries to measure, which is the likelihood you're going to default on a credit bill."
And that right there is another gut punch against the approved card from this documentary. Allegedly, what's put forth here is that FICO straight up reported that the information from a prepaid debit card transaction ledger is not relevant to what a FICO score is supposed to be measuring. Let's break away from the documentary and validate what's going on here on myfico.com directly. This section of the website is linked in the description below, but it's about what your FICO score is comprised of. We have a pie chart that says 30% of your FICO score comes down to how much you owe. Straight up, how much you owe, implying how much you owe on your debts. 10% of your score comes from reports on new credit that you have taken out. 15% of your credit score is comprised of how long your credit history is. 10% of your score is comprised of your mix of credit. It's this little chunk of your score that leads credit experts to advising you to take out multiple different types of credit, i.e. not only just credit cards, but a mortgage and car loans and on and on. Finally, the biggest part of your credit score is derived from your payment history. And it's this chunk of how your credit score is calculated that, with ambiguous interpretation, could translate to someone believing that a debit card can indeed impact your credit score if your payment history is reported to a credit bureau. Let's scroll down on this webpage and see if it says anything more about payment history. Okay, we've got the importance of credit categories. FICO score looks at your credit report. Payment history is the first of these sections that shows up. Let's read what it says here. The first thing any lender wants to know is whether you've paid past credit accounts on time. This helps a lender figure out the amount of risk it will take on when extending credit. This is the most important factor of your FICO score. I don't think there's any room to misinterpret that. The payment history is directly tied to your credit accounts, not your debit accounts, not your banks, the accounts where you borrow money and then pay it back. It's looking at debt payment history explicitly and exclusively. That is, according to myfico.com, Fair Isaac Corporation's website themselves. To wrap up what I want to share with you from this documentary, we're going to jump close to the end to see what ended up happening to the approved card as it no longer exists.
The approved card was quietly discontinued without a single peep from Orman.
Suze Orman card is shutting down. Consumer advisor Clark Howard shows us what to do if you have one of these cards.
When her approved card closed, Orman ignored all the requests by journalists and card users for information about why it was closing. Instead, she posted photos and videos of her luxury trip around the world.
Could life get any better than this? I don't think so.
I got very upset with Suze when a few years ago she set up a Suze Orman prepaid card and was very excited about it and did a full national tour promoting the card. And I trashed the card. Why? because it had fee on top of fee on top of fee. Now, thank goodness, the card is being shut down.
I just want to take a moment to say I sincerely appreciate you, Clark Howard. You're awesome. And for those of you who are listening who have never heard of Clark Howard, he's a great resource for you.
If you have one of the Suze Orman cards and you're going to be looking for a new card, you're going to be able to find ones that are much, much better out there that will not cost you an arm, a leg, and a foot to use.
Users received only a single convoluted letter stating that prepaid cards don't affect your credit scores and telling card users to spend all the money on their card within 1 month, which in many cases included thousands of dollars in long-term savings. Anyone who didn't get or understand that single letter was completely unable to access their money.
And that right there is why marketing this card as an alternative to your banking situation was such a huge red flag. Can you imagine putting your life savings onto a prepaid card, not getting that letter because it got lost or misinterpreting the letter, and then forfeiting all of your money when it gets shut down? This documentary alleges that is exactly what happened here when the card was quietly discontinued after only existing for, I think, a couple years. Most of the clips of Suze marketing her card are from 2012. And this article from Yahoo Finance is from June 18th, 2014. It's entitled, "Have a Suze Orman Approved Card, What to Do Now?" This article is all about what you need to do because the card is being shut down, and if you have one, action is going to be required if you want to keep your money. To reiterate one more time, everything in that documentary is alleged. I don't have any evidence, nor do I have a claim that Suze is genuinely guilty of being a liar and a fraudster around this card, even if the documentary makes a very compelling argument. And for how serious the claims are in that documentary, it's gone seriously underviewed. So what is the hope-filled takeaway from this information? A debit card and your bank transaction history is not related to what your FICO score is trying to measure. And anyone who claims otherwise must have some sort of different motive to be telling you about it, to be marketing a debit card as a means of building credit. I want you to ask about anything like this. How is the company making money? How are they benefiting from me? And I want you to ask this for the main topic because that is indeed what's happened again. For today's main topic, I'm going to be reacting to 3 advertisements from Experian featuring Taylor Swift's boyfriend, Travis Kelce. You see, football season is back in full swing, and being in Kansas City, it's really hard to ignore anything that features the Chiefs. And last year for the Super Bowl, I remember seeing this advertisement. It reminded me of the Suze Orman documentary, which I had seen before last year's Super Bowl. While I didn't do anything with my feelings at the time, it's relevant to bring it up now because this product is still being marketed through NFL material today. Let's watch and listen to the Experian Super Bowl ad together now.
I know what you're thinking. Travis Kelce is a lot like the new Experian Smart Money debit card. I was thinking that too, because it's cool.
I gotta say, the cinematics here of a slow-mo with Travis Kelce flying through the air and the light shining down from heaven is genuinely cool.
With the digital checking account, it can build credit without the debt.
And that right there is the main claim. A debit card connected to a digital bank account that can help you build credit without debt. History repeats itself, and this ad is not alone. Here's a second one that was also featured last year in and around the Super Bowl.
Travis Kelce, 2 championship rings, 7 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons.
You're Brian Halsey. 0 debt, perfect payment history. I worship you, man.
You do? It's all the Experian Smart Money debit card.
It has a digital checking account that can build credit without the debt.
Okay, in the hypothetical universe where this advertisement exists, does Travis Kelce know who this random person is and that they don't have any debt because Experian sold all his debit card information to Travis?
Use mine for everything.
Me too.
No way.
Oh, man. I'll see you, man.
Yeah, bye.
The debit card that builds credit. Get your Experian Smart Money account through the free app.
Okay, when I saw both of those advertisements for the first time, red flags shot up like fireworks because I had seen that Suze Orman documentary we just covered. I know what happened there as it was alleged in that documentary. And I know what's on FICO's website. A debit card transaction history has nothing to do with your credit score. It has nothing to do with the goals of Fair Isaac Corporation. And it's being advertised again this year. This advertisement at the time of recording is only a couple weeks old.
Wait, Experian has a debit card?
Yeah, it's the all-new Experian Smart Money debit card.
Fumble! Travis Kelce with his free championship rings fumbles the debit card. Tough break. With the digital checking account, it can build credit without the debt. It gives you early paycheck access.
Is everyone fighting over the fumbled debit card in this ad because they're aware of just how much money's probably on that? Oh, and in a blink and you'll miss it moment, they claim again that you can build your credit without the debt.
That's a nice hit.
I love you.
And you can get $50 for doing direct deposit. That's one smart card.
Sorry.
Build credit without the debt. Get yours today. Download the free Experian app now.
All right, let's get that off the screen. I am not promoting that you go after this product. Okay, when it came to Suze Orman and her claim that the approved card was going to help build your credit score, she was working with TransUnion. And what we have here is Experian doing almost the same thing. Now, their bank account that's associated with this, I believe, is FDIC insured. In fact, there are references to the FDIC in the fine print at the bottom of that last advertisement. Now, remember at the end of the story, I asked you to think about how is this product generating revenue for the interested parties? How is Experian and the bank they're partnering up with making money here? Well, to answer that question, I've gone to the Experian website and found the page that advertises this digital card. If we scroll down, we can see that there's no monthly fees. There's a little asterisk there. I did look into the fees. That's nothing like the Suze Orman card. It says that the bank is FDIC insured here. Peace of mind up to $250,000. And if we keep scrolling, the first section says build credit without the debt. This section reads, pay bills like your rent, utilities, and streaming services with your digital checking account and will find payments that could instantly raise your credit score. There's a little asterisk there, and that leads to this section, and it reads, results will vary. Not all payments are boost eligible. Some users may not receive an improved score or approved odds. Not all lenders use Experian credit files, and not all lenders use scores impacted by Experian Boost. Experian Boost. Now, I've heard that before. I've heard that in previous Experian ads that were being played in NFL games in years past. It wasn't tied to a debit card back then. They just had Experian Boost through their app. Let's jump back into the website and click the Learn More under that disclaimer. That brings us to this page, the Experian Boost disclosure. Check this out. Experian Boost results will vary. Not all rent, telecommunications, utilities, video streaming, internet, or insurance payments are Boost eligible. Generally, 3 or more eligible payments to qualify payee within 6 months with at least one such payment within 3 months are required to Boost. Bills paid quarterly or frequently, and health insurance are not eligible. Residential rent payments within certain amount range are required to Boost with rent. Rent may not be Boost eligible if third-party data furnisher has already provided any rent or mortgage data to your Experian credit file. Payments through peer-to-peer payment services or by paper check are not eligible. Not all lenders use Experian credit files, and not all lenders use scores impacted by Experian Boost. And that right there, I think, is the biggest kicker, but let's finish the disclaimer before we jump into it. Some users may not receive an improved score or approved odds with Boost. Users who received a Boost improved their FICO score 8 from Experian by an average of 13 points. Isn't that Taylor Swift's favorite number? This to me is the biggest statement in the whole disclaimer. Most mortgage lenders do not consider credit scores impacted by Boost. Terms and conditions subject to change. Okay, to reiterate in my own words, this debit card is simply connected to the Experian Boost program. It's giving your information for all transactions, all of your personal information directly to Experian so they can automatically apply information that may be applicable to their Boost program. A program that, according to that disclaimer, is not used by all lenders and is not used by most mortgage lenders. From that legalese, I'm assuming that Boost changes or modifies or tweaks your FICO 8 score a little bit, given the average change of 13 points, and uses it as a different type of scoring system, which is no longer purely your credit score. Consider that this is coming from only one of the 3 bureaus, and a lender is probably going to be pulling more than one credit report if they're doing their due diligence on a very serious loan. And I think that's why most mortgage lenders are not considering this, because your debit card payments are simply not relevant to what FICO is trying to measure using your credit score. Now, a lot of that information I infer from this disclaimer, but there is a section of Experian's website that talks about Boost without the debit card that's tied to this. This is the Experian webpage that talks about Experian Boost separate from the card. It says instantly raise your credit scores for free. If we scroll down, we can see that they're saying you pay your bills, your subscription bills, and that gets tied to Experian Boost. There's some instructions here, one of which is to connect your bank account to Experian Boost, so they get all of the transactions going through your bank. Next, you select the bills that you want to use to try to boost your score using Experian Boost's modification of a FICO score. Then finally, you see your results and they give you a little bit of a positive. They're only going to increase your score. They're not going to use any of the information to negatively impact your score. You know, that's fine, but I do have a problem personally giving my personal information to a credit bureau if it's information that I could keep private. Let's go down here and see what the frequently asked questions are about. Education and advice. What is Experian Boost? Let's read their answer to what is Experian Boost. Experian Boost is an easy way for you to take control of your credit and build long-term credit health just by paying your bills. When you connect your bank account or credit card, we'll look for bills with positive history that you can add to your Experian credit file. It could also instantly raise your FICO score. I think it's interesting that in this particular section of the frequently asked questions, they don't say it's a modified version of the FICO score or a Boost FICO score, just modifying your FICO score plainly. Let's look through some of these other questions. The one at the bottom is really interesting. Can Experian Boost help me if I have no credit history or no FICO score? Let's expand that and check it out. This reads, if you're just starting on your credit journey, that's okay. Experian Boost can still help you if you meet the minimum FICO requirements. You have at least one account on your credit report that has been active for at least 6 months. Now, credit report meaning it's a credit account, not a bank account that's tied to Experian Boost. This is a minimum requirement for a FICO score, not a minimum requirement for Experian Boost. Second, you have at least one account on your credit report that has been reported to a credit bureau within the last 6 months. You are not listed as deceased on your credit report, and if that is the case, the credit bureau providing your report might have you mixed up with another person. Lastly, if you check all these boxes, you can get your first FICO score and use Experian Boost. Well, how conveniently did they not answer the question other than simply circumventing the answer? No, Experian Boost is not going to help you generate a FICO score if you don't have one, because they simply said, well, you got to meet the minimum requirements for having a FICO score, and then you can use Experian Boost. This is a little more clear if we go to the frequently asked questions tied to the Smart Money debit card page. The last frequently asked question reads, can my digital checking account affect my credit scores? The answer is, bills you pay with your Experian Smart Money digital checking account could actually help raise your credit scores. Your account is automatically connected to Experian Boost, which could help you get credit for some of the bills you already pay. Could being the key word. Lastly, otherwise, opening a checking account generally has no impact on your credit scores. Purchases made through your account and the amount of money in it also don't affect your scores. Okay, so what have we learned? The Smart Money debit card is simply a debit card being marketed with a bank that is partnering with Experian to give you something that automatically gives them your spending information, your personal information tied to money that doesn't need to be reported to them. It's something that TransUnion must have found very valuable to work with Suze Orman when it came to her approved card, all of your personal spending patterns. If they are getting it without friction through a card that's automatically tied to Experian Boost, then they can get that information more easily. My guess is the process currently to sign up for Experian Boost involves so much friction that not enough people are getting into it in order for them to accumulate the valuable information that they want to have on record about you. And your personal information, your patterns, are valuable to advertisers. I want you to know that. I'm not saying right now that Experian is selling your information here, but that's what they are in the business of doing, is selling copies of your credit report and validating your credit score for people who want to sell you debt products. That's what a lender is, right? So they're just collecting more information on you that can be sold. The key word there is it can be sold, even if their terms and conditions were to say, I haven't read through them all, even if it were to say that they can't sell that information, the disclaimer says that the terms and conditions are subject to change. So they can potentially, if they don't already, change them to sell your personal information. That's not something I want to engage with at all. And when it comes to my credit score, I'm not trying to get it up there because I think that it's a measure of my financial success. The only reason that I would really care a lot about my credit score is going to be A, getting a mortgage and getting a good rate on that mortgage, and then B, getting my premiums down on insurance. If I have a mortgage, I'm going to have a credit score anyway, so I might as well take good care of it. I don't personally use credit cards, and my credit score is still okay with just the history of my mortgages on there. And if most mortgage lenders are not going to be using Experian Boost credit scores, then why do I care about selling my personal information and all of my transaction history that could be, lost in a data breach if a major credit bureau gets hacked again, because that's happened before, right? If I give them all that information, all that valuable information, just to boost my score on a version that isn't going to be applied to a mortgage, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. At the very least, we didn't discover that this particular card is as problematic as the approved card was, according to the documentary in the story. But you, listening to this now, need to be skeptical when you see the advertisements with Travis Kelce saying you can build credit without the debt. Because what we see here is something that is collecting your personal information for very little usable gain if you're following the HopeFilled financial footsteps. If there's any gain to be had at all, I'm not going to be working with this. With that, what did you take away from today's episode? Did you learn anything? Are you going to be more aware as a consumer when it comes to the way that FICO scores are advertised, especially when it comes to building FICO scores or credit scores without a debt product? What do you think of the whole situation with Suze Orman? And do you get as fired up about these ads with Travis Kelce as I did? Let me know in the comments below. And until next week, until next Tuesday, budget bravely and enjoy your hope-filled financial future.